Do you feel like you're running on empty and can't seem to catch a break? Are you feeling exhausted, drained, and depleted, both physically and mentally, and maybe even spiritually? In today's video, we'll explore the signs and symptoms of burnout, its causes, and most importantly, ways to prevent and overcome it on Soul Zero 2. And welcome to Soul Zero 2. This is the podcast that's putting the oxygen back into the Christian life one soul at a time. And in an article in Psychology Today, there were some statistics that said that 89% of workers have experienced burnout within the past year. 77% of employees, and this is in 2022, 77% of employees have experienced feelings of burnout at their current job, and 21% of workers say that their company does not offer any program to help alleviate burnout. The burnout rate was 59% as of 2022, which is really, really not good, right? And so what is burnout? And again, today I'm sharing this not as a psychologist. That's not my wheelhouse. I'm a minister and a teacher. But from my own experience, I have experienced burnout in my life through the years. And here's a good definition of burnout. It's a state of emotional, mental, and often physical exhaustion brought on by prolonged or repeated stress. And though it's most often caused by problems at work, it can also appear in other areas of life, such as parenting, caretaking, or relationships. Burnout in my life has happened, through the years, like I said, and so I'm speaking from just a fellow traveler who has been through the same thing. In the Bible, people are burned out. In the Bible, King David, the most famous of kings, he battled burnout. In Psalm 22:14, he wrote this: "I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax. It is melted within my breast." Does that sound like burnout to you? Because of his enemies and their attacks on David's life and his men, David felt as though his existence was being drained like water. And his joints were out of alignment and his heart turned to mush, losing the ability to resist the attacks. David was burned out. So how do you know if you are burned out? Well, people who are burned out tend to, and this, again, I got this of my reading through the years on books and articles on burnout. But one of the first warning signs is constant feeling of being cynical towards life. And also having a strong desire to escape. How about this one? Experiencing a false sense of failure, or displaying emotional distancing or numbing or apathy, like you don't feel anything, or becoming hypercritical of others, or experiencing negative feelings towards others, or showing inappropriate anger or sadness, or succumbing to depression, or even physical sickness. Some often endure physical sickness or illness as a result of burnout. Or maybe the coping mechanisms that we employ to help alleviate burnout, like alcohol or drugs or any kind of mechanism to help us escape or feel better or feel something. So according to experts, burnout comes in stages. And, the books I've read through the years, not everyone agrees on how many stages there are or which order they come in. But in general, they agree. The first one is stage one is you begin by feeling excited and enthusiastic about your project or job or, endeavor. And there's productivity, you're creative, and you have a sense of momentum. Stage two is the onset of stress, which means kind of like the pre-stress. And that's during this stage of burnout, you start to feel stagnant and may begin to notice that your commitment is taking more of your time than you might like. And you have less time and energy for the things that you enjoy and the people that you love. And I've seen this where people get a great job and they're all pumped up. After 3 months, they're like, it's okay. That's not a good sign, right? that means the honeymoon's over and they have to decide whether they're going to just burn out or they're going to find a balance somewhere, right? So in this stage, you might also experience headaches and anxiety and changes in your appetite and sleep patterns. And again, I've experienced some of this through the years. Stage 3, chronic stress. And that's where you become frustrated, stressed out, exhausted. Performance takes a hit, right? You experience feelings of powerlessness to change. You become resentful, cynical, and apathetic, and it becomes a constant burden that threatens your well-being. Stage 4 is burnout. You thought stage 3 was bad. Stage 4 is the actual burnout. And that's where you become apathetic and discouraged, and you live in a continual sense or state of failure and inadequacy and ineffectiveness. And you find that you feel like you could just never catch up, and you want to escape from reality. Stage 5 is habitual burnout. That's where exhaustion becomes your default story, your way of life. And you not only experience mental and physical fatigue, but you also may have chronic sadness and even depression. And again, like I said, I've experienced some of this stuff through the years. And so this is why people like Elijah in the Bible ran from Jezebel, and he escaped into sleep. This is why Moses burned out from leading Israel, and his father-in-law had to come and give him advice. And Moses ended up at some point on his journey striking this rock in anger when God told him to strike the rock so that water would come out of it. And Moses was so angry at the people that he struck the rock in anger. He was burned out. This is why David became faint in battle, the Bible says. So how do we move from burnout to a state of well-being? The first thing we can do is this: regain control. Somewhere along the journey, you lost control. Reset the boundaries against the chaos that caused you to lose yourself to begin with. Now, there have been times where I have sat on 5 different boards, maybe more, I forget, but I've had to resign from maybe 2 or 3 of them because I realized that I was losing my own heart in the process, that I was doing this stuff like a good philanthropist, like someone who just wants to help people, but I wasn't feeling anything. I was exhausted, and I was wondering, why am I doing this? Am I really helping people if my heart's not in this? So I had to kind of step back from it. Paul, in the Bible, knew his boundaries, the Apostle Paul, when he said to the Corinthian church, we will keep within the field that God has assigned to us. He knew his boundaries. He knew what he could do and what he couldn't do. But secondly, do this. Learn to say no. This is not too bad for me because my personality type I don't have a problem saying no. I'm not afraid to offend people if I have to say no to protect my boundaries, my family, and so forth. So in an article called The Coronary Ulcer Club, it lists the following rules for members. It's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek, but it's kind of like dark too. It says if you want a coronary, if you want a heart attack, right? It says your job comes first. Forget everything else. Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays are for working at the office, as there'll be nobody there to bother you. Always have your briefcase or work bag with you when not at your desk. This provides an opportunity to review completely all the troubles and worries of the day. Never say no to a request. Always say yes. Accept all written and text invitations to meetings, banquets, and committees. And all forms of recreation are a waste of time. You could be working instead. Never delegate responsibility to others. Carry the entire load yourself. And if your work calls for traveling, work all day so that you can travel at night and be more efficient that way. And there was one more. No matter how many jobs you already have, remember, you can always do more. Now we find that this happens because people don't know how to say no. Saying no means not giving up control of your disciplined schedule so that it'll fit everyone else's whim. Moses' father-in-law gave him advice on saying no. When Moses, it says in Exodus 18, when his father-in-law saw all that he had done or was doing for the people, he said, "What is this that you are doing for the people? Why do you sit alone? Why do all the people stand around you all morning until evening?" Moses said, "Well, it's because the people come to me to inquire of the Lord." And when they have a dispute, they come to me, and I decide between one person and the other, and I make known to them the statutes and instructions of God. Moses' father-in-law said to him, "What you're doing is not good. You will surely wear yourself out, both you and these people with you." And I won't read any more, but there's more to that story, and it's amazing how that his father-in-law ends up telling Moses, "You can't do this alone." So there are times when saying no leads to freedom, and saying yes will lead you to bondage. But here's another thing you can do. Understand what God requires of you. It's no cliche to say that God never leads you where his grace can't sustain you. I've heard that all my life, that saying, and after a while you get used to hearing it, but it's true. If his grace is not keeping you, then I have gone beyond my limits, right? If his grace is not keeping me, I've gone beyond my limits. God will never ask you to do something that will leave you insane, overstressed, hopeless, and hating yourself. That's not God's way, right? He knows how much we can take. At the end of the day, it says in Micah 6:8, he has told you, O mortal, what is good and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God. But here's another one that you can do, another thing you can do for burnout. Have a plan to slow down. Hey, it's great that you're angry that you're burned out and you're sick of it, but what are you going to do about it? After creation, God's plan was this. He rested on the seventh day from all the works that he did. It shows that rest has a special significance for God. So create space for rest. When are you taking a vacation? When are you stopping? This is something I have to work on myself. I'm not good at that. I have to work on that. Exodus 23:12 says, 6 days you shall do all your work, but on the seventh day you shall rest. So God is saying, make a space here. Rest means renewal and replenishing. So remember that. Here's one last thing. We may have one or two left. I forget because I go through my notes real quickly, but discern your priorities, right? Often our problem isn't all the things that we're doing. It's that we think we have to do absolutely everything to succeed. So we need discernment. Discernment separates the chaotic mess from the real, meaningful productivity. And here's the last one. Learn to move in the energy of God. There was a priest named Zerubbabel in the Old Testament who told the Lord that he was burned out trying to get the temple finished. And the Lord gave him a vision in Zechariah 4:1-6. And the vision, I won't read it, I'll just tell you about the vision. The vision was basically God says, here's your answer. He showed him a picture of an olive tree or two olive trees and a lampstand. And it's an amazing picture. But here's the interpretation. The interpretation is this, and God gave it to him in verse 6. Not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord of hosts. Now the two olive trees symbolize the equipping and supplying of God for the work, for whatever he tells you to do in life. Whether it's a business, whether you have a ministry, whether you're taking care of someone, God gives you the energy. And it literally means, and I can't pronounce the Hebrew, I'll have to have help from some of my rabbi friends. It literally means the two sons of oil, and in some cases, the two sons of fresh oil. And these two sons were believed to be two leaders, one a priest, Zerubbabel, and the other a civic leader, Joshua. Together, they would get the temple done in God's energy, not their own. And it says in Haggai, minor prophet, Haggai 1:14, and the Lord stirred up the spirit of Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and the spirit of Joshua, son of Jehozadak, the high priest. In the vision, the oil flows directly from the trees into the lampstand without human effort, supplying oil to the lamps. And this is a picture that God is going to get the spiritual part done and the organizational part done in his energy, in his way, not in ours. That's why the word spirit there is ruah, or the breath of God. And it was the ruah of God that hovered over the waters of creation, getting it done. And it was the ruah of God that blew over the Red Sea and split the Red Sea. And it was the ruah of God that made the bones come back to life in Ezekiel's vision. Same word, same Hebrew word. And it is the ruah of God that will be the enabling force to finish the temple. And he will finish your work if you trust in him. So if you enjoyed this podcast, please like, subscribe, and share it, and connect with us through our channels as we aim to grow this channel. So thank you so much for being with us. God bless you, and take care of yourself.